everybody. So we got some pretty big news dropped this afternoon, particularly big news for fans in the United States like me. NBC has dropped their NHL television schedule for this coming season, letting us all know what games are going to be available to watch nationwide on NBC and NBCSN. So obviously this is big because for those of us in the United States, these are the games we get to see nationally. We get our home market. For me, it's the Boston Bruins. I get my home market, and then I get whatever NBC decides to do. And those are the games that I can watch throughout the year. So NBC is back. Obviously, it's a shortened season this year, but they're back with Wednesday night hockey. They're back with Sunday games, and they've got a lot of Sunday night games as well, which is something they haven't done they've done in the past, but not a whole lot of. Now it seems like Sunday nights, once football season ends, Sunday nights is going to be a much more regular thing on NBCSN as well. So let's get into it here. Let me move over so you all can see. Let's start with Wednesdays. This is their full Wednesday night hockey schedule for this coming season. Obviously, first night back, January 13th, they have 3 games lined up: Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Chicago, Tampa Bay, and then St. Louis and Colorado to close it out. Obviously, a fun night of hockey, welcoming us back to having the NHL season back underway again. Next week, January 20th, we've got Edmonton and Toronto, Canadian division matchup there. Obviously, Matthews versus McDavid, huge game there. Chicago and Nashville, obviously kind of your typical Central Division rivalry there. Boston, Philadelphia, and then Boston versus the New York Rangers. So we got Bruins games a couple weeks in a row there. Chicago, Detroit. Now that's kind of a head scratcher to me. Obviously, there's history there. Chicago and Detroit were longtime Central Division rivals, but those are 2 of the worst teams in the league. So that one, I feel like they could have probably had a better game on. But moving on, Rangers in Philadelphia on the February 24th. That will be a heck of a game in the East Division. Then Washington and Boston, always a great matchup when those 2 play. Vegas and Minnesota on March 10th. That will be a real interesting one out in the West Division. And then they come back with another matchup between the Flyers and Rangers. Gonna like that one a lot. Buffalo and Pittsburgh. That's an interesting one. We'll see how that goes on March 24th. 31st, Arizona and St. Louis. You can see them trying to squeeze some teams in here at least once. Teams like Buffalo and Arizona, Minnesota, who they don't really show a whole lot. They're trying to squeeze them in at least once throughout the year. It seems like. Then Montreal versus Toronto. That will be a heck of a game up in the Canadian division there. Vegas versus LA, kind of a rivalry matchup. Nashville versus Chicago again, typical Central Division there. St. Louis, Minnesota the next week, some more Central Division. Even though they're now in the West, it's funny, but they're traditional Central Division rivals. And then they close it out May 5th with Washington at the Rangers, and that could be a huge game with playoff implications. So that's your schedule for Wednesday nights this year. Let's look at Sundays now. So here's what Sunday afternoons are going, or mostly Sunday afternoons. There are a few Saturday games mixed in here, but this is your NHL on NBC schedule. So all those Wednesday night games are on NBCSN. These games are on national television, NBC, like the Sunday afternoon games usually are. We've got Washington, Pittsburgh. We've got Detroit, Chicago. Again, that's kind of, I don't understand that one as much because they're both going to be terrible, but at least there's a historical rivalry there. And you've got Philadelphia and Washington, Pittsburgh again. Obviously, anytime Washington and Pittsburgh plays, NBC eats that up because it's always a nasty physical rivalry game between 2 teams that are generally good. Although I certainly have my questions about the Penguins this year. It's always a big time matchup when those 2 teams play. Then they change it up a little bit. Saturday the 20th, we've got Vegas and Colorado. You don't see Western Conference teams featured in these Sunday games all that often. Vegas and Colorado out in now this year the West Division. That's That's going to be a really interesting matchup. They come back the next week with a much more traditional Boston versus Philadelphia. Then on the 28th, we get a Boston versus the New York Rangers, old original six matchup there. That'll be a lot of fun. On the 7th, we have March 7th, Buffalo and the New York Islanders. That's going to be an interesting game for sure to be on national television. Not a traditional matchup that you would see on NBC, but could be a fun one. March 28th, you've got the Rangers and the Capitals. Again, pretty standard rivalry game there. On Sunday, April 4th, you've got Detroit versus Tampa Bay. That's really interesting. And then the weekend of the 17th and 18th, you have a game on Saturday and a game on Sunday, which I love. Absolutely love that. You've got Pittsburgh and Buffalo on Saturday, and then you've got Washington and Boston on Sunday. So that's back-to-back days with games on NBC. And then they do it again the next weekend, the 24th and the 25th. You've got Colorado and St. Louis. Again, another, another interesting matchup with teams from out west that usually don't get these, primetime showings. They're trying to show the West a little bit more this year, I think. And then Boston and Pittsburgh on Sunday. Anytime Boston and Pittsburgh plays, man, that's big-time hockey. Their three matchups last season were intense, and now they're playing each other 8 times this season. So that is going to be something else. And then on Sunday the 2nd, they close it out with Tampa Bay and Detroit. Again, I feel like you probably could have had a better game there, but I'm not going to nitpick. And then Saturday the 8th, which is the last day of the NHL regular season, they've left it open. They've left it open to be able to slot in whatever game has the most meaning towards the playoff race there. So right now it's to be determined. It's going to be whatever game has the most playoff implications, and that will be slotted in for the last day of the regular season. So that's your NBC schedule. And then we have Sunday night hockey, which this is something, there's been Sunday night games on NBCSN before, but it hasn't really been a regular thing. It's kind of been an every once in a while thing. Now, it's once football ends and you get past the Super Bowl, it becomes a much more regular thing. Like starting on the February 14th, Colorado and Vegas, more West. Again, I think they're trying to show more West this year. 21st, Florida and Detroit. That's kind of an interesting game to choose. Again, I don't have the full schedule in front of me, so I don't know what other games they could have shown that night, but Florida and Detroit seems like kind of a weird matchup. Next week, Detroit and Chicago again. I think that's the third or fourth Detroit versus Chicago matchup we've seen at some point on NBC. The Rangers in Pittsburgh, March 7th, March 14th, LA and Colorado. They played a Stadium Series game last year, so they were on NBC for that. They'll get a matchup on NBCSN this year. Then Vegas and LA, again, second time I think I've seen Vegas and LA matchup on one of these NBC schedules. Nashville, Chicago, again, see them a lot. More Central Division matchups there. April 4th, Dallas and Carolina, and that could be a sneaky good game. Those are two teams in the Central Division that should be really competitive and fighting near the top of that division. So while that's not one of your certainly traditional matchups, that could be a really fun game, actually. April 18th, you've got the Islanders and Flyers. Again, always a great matchup there. They played in the playoffs last year. And then they close it out on April 25th with Columbus and Tampa Bay. And boy, am I excited for that one. Teams are normally over in the East, but they're in the Central Division for this year with the realignment. We know the playoff history between those two. That will be a fun way to finish out Sunday night hockey for the regular season. So that's what your schedule is looking like for NBC this coming season on Wednesdays, Saturday and Sundays, and then Sunday nights as well. So NBC does seem to be showing a good number of games. They're obviously trying to mix some different teams in there, mix some new teams in there that they don't show normally a whole lot of, while also having enough of your normal rivalry matchups that we see on NBC year in and year out. Your Flyers and Rangers, your Bruins and Capitals, your Penguins and Capitals. matchups like that, your Nashville, Chicago. So they're still doing a lot of their normal stuff while also mixing in some games with Buffalo, mixing in some games with Vegas, mixing in some LA games, mixing in some Minnesota games, things like that. So they're getting a decent mix in there, and overall, I think it's a pretty decent schedule. Again, I don't have the full night by night schedule in front of me right now, so I could go through and maybe nitpick on, instead of showing this game, you should show this one. But overall, it's not a bad schedule. And I'm just excited to have hockey back. I know normally when I do NBC videos, I'm ranting against them and how awful their hockey coverage is. But honestly, there's not much to complain about. I don't know if I'm just happy to have hockey and glad that it's coming back, or if I'm just softening up a little bit. But I really don't have that many complaints. There were a few matchups there I was kind of like, why are you showing that? But, overall, it's a decent schedule. So obviously that plays a big role in what games that I can stream. I have the Bruins games, and then I have whatever NBC shows. So a lot of those matchups, those are going to be my choices for games to stream, because I'll get to watch them on NBC and NBCSN. So NBC's schedule is out. That's what we've got for nationally televised hockey here in the United States this year. Really excited to get the season underway and get hockey back. Really excited to actually have a schedule out and know what games are going to be on TV and which ones I can watch. And we're just getting closer and closer to hockey season, which obviously is really, really exciting. So with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon, merchandise store, and donation link are in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.